Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Risk with Dr. Naveen Agarwal. Each week, we talk about a topic related to risk management of medical devices in a very casual and informal way. This is not a webinar or lecture. Rather, our goal is to talk about key topics and challenges in a very informal way and share best practices. I'm your host, Naveen Agarwal, and I'm the principal and founder at Achieve, where my personal mission is to help you achieve success in risk management. My guest in this episode is Vincent Cafiso, and we are talking about inspection readiness. Vincent has many years of experience at the US FDA as an investigator and also in leadership roles in many different medical device companies. So he's the best person to talk about inspection readiness, what it means, what are the benefits, and how it relates to the overall culture of quality in an organization. We had this discussion in front of a live audience as part of our LinkedIn live audio series. You're about to hear a recording of our conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Guys, today is going to have a very interesting conversation. And my guest today is Vincent Cafiso, who was at the FDA, and then he also was at many different organizations. So he has seen both sides of the story. And we're going to talk about inspection readiness, why that is important, what does it look like, why should we care, and how does it relate to risk. So we're going to have a very interesting conversation about this. But guys, as you know, it is useful only when all of you also participate. And the way it works is that we will talk for about 15 minutes or so, kick off, and then I'll start inviting you guys to participate. Share your perspective, your comments, your questions, best practices, because this conversation is all about learning from each other. So I hope you will enjoy. And with that, I'm going to welcome Vin. Vin, thanks for joining. Please start by introducing yourself to our audience briefly.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Naveen. Thanks to everyone who's joining us today. First off, I just want to say how grateful I am for this opportunity to be here with you, Naveen. I've been a huge admirer of your work in the risk management space. And whenever I think of risk, I think of you. Actually, the other day I was painting my front door and I leaned a little bit too far off the ladder. And when I stepped off the ladder, I put my foot down on a wet paintbrush, and I thought to myself, what would Naveen be thinking about this situation?
Yeah, risk is part of our daily life, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. So, I think I speak for a lot of people here today, joining us that my Fridays would be really, really boring without the Let Us Talk Risk platform here. So I want to extend a huge thank you to you, and I hope that we can get a virtual round of applause for Naveen for providing us with such an amazing platform and a forum to discuss so many important topics. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. This is great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, it's great. It really is. And just thank you, just such gratitude for what you do. And the fact that, we get to talk here, not just me and you talking, but, eventually we're going to be talking to everybody here and
right.
Hearing from people. And I'm going to be learning, and I'm looking forward to this. So, this topic of inspection readiness, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And honestly, it really kind of forms almost the basis of my consultancy, because it's what I love to work with my clients on. A little bit about me. I've been in this industry for like 30 years. I started my career as an investigator for the United States Food and Drug Administration. I probably conducted several hundred inspections of medical device and diagnostic manufacturers, design facilities, sterilization facilities, distribution facilities, those kinds of things. And really, helping them become inspection ready, whether or not they liked it. But after I left FDA, I really worked very hard to achieve the same the same state of inspection readiness for the sites that I worked for, hundreds probably of sites from all the companies that I've worked for and all the sites that they were owning. And so I also have been doing a lot of work with suppliers. So all told, probably close to 1,000 inspections, gap analyses, due diligence assessments, internal audits, sister site audits, supplier audits, those kinds of things. And, they probably resulted in many thousands of inspectional observations, nonconformities, findings, or, whatever synonym you like to use, to describe a non-compliance for the regulation or standard. So, again, just topic that I love to talk about, and happy to
That's
share.
really awesome.
Yeah.
So what I was curious to kind of ask you, Ben, is going back to your FDA days. As you said, you have done many inspections. When you walk into a company's facilities, offices, does something stand out to you in terms of indicating, are they ready for you or not? Do they show good inspection readiness, or do they show bad inspection readiness? What stands out to you?
Yeah, that's a great question, because a lot of people might think, well, they didn't stage the documents properly, or they haven't done a good job with their audio-visual, presenting their, their company, information, or, whatever. There's the what I would refer to as like inspection management. But to me, that isn't what jumps out at me when I first really, get to know, or even in my inspection days when I really just was walking right in the door, not knowing anybody. I really hone in on, initially anyway, that first contact is really, what is the culture like here? Is there a quality culture, right? Like, do employees seem to have good relationships with one another, right? Is there a healthy amount of them discussing things? And, a lot of times in an inspection, you're not going to see like the conflict resolution, happening in front of an investigator. But, really more so when I made my way into industry, that I realized that avoidance of conflict is actually a bad thing. And, so looking at those kinds of things, again, as an investigator, I would talk to employees, and I would ask them to talk about what they're doing, and do they know how their actions impact quality, or do they know how their actions could potentially result in something going wrong for a customer, for a patient. So I really drill down. His initial contact, like I said, is really all about, like I said, all about the culture. I remember one time, and this kind of stuck with me, when I was an investigator, I was talking to somebody, and I was kind of drilling down with her about exactly what we're talking about here. Do they know about how their actions impact quality? And this one woman, I never forget, she said, well, I walk around every aspect of my job, and she, mentioned things that she did. She was an inspector, and so she did inspections of in process and final device acceptance. And she said, I want to make sure that every product that goes out the door is going to be perfect to be used on a family member. Right? So that, to me, that's such a strong quality culture, because not only did she know exactly how her actions impact the quality, but she was thinking about the customers as a family member.
Right.
And so, that's really where I start. I really start with that. I think that a lot of people would automatically go right into, like I said, inspection management. Do we have a good front room? Do we have a good back room? Or, let's jump in and do a gap analysis, identifying what criteria we have to comply with, and let's do a gap analysis, and let's close all those gaps, right? And form a project team, and we're going to have a scrum every day at 8:00, right? Like, that's the blocking and tackling, and that's all really, really important stuff when we're talking about inspection readiness as like a full comprehensive plan, a comprehensive program. But I think what underpins it is a quality culture.
Yeah.
And I think risk management too, and how risk underpins every single system of the quality system.
Yeah. So this is an awesome point you are making, is that inspection readiness is not like, just being ready for the inspection aspect of the management aspect of it, but way of life. Like, how do we treat quality as a way of life, as part of our culture in the organization? I'm thinking of, like, let's say you're a runner and I'm a runner. So I'm thinking about, let's say you're gonna run a big race. The readiness for that race actually begins far in advance. It's not like you show up one day and say, I have great shoes, I have the great gear, and here you go, I'm gonna go run this race. But when you see these people, let's say you watch someone run a great race, it shows on their face how comfortable they are, even though it's painful. So I guess you would probably feel it in the air. You will feel it in the environment, on people's faces. It's not a test. It's more like an examination of what's going on and maybe opportunities to learn. I think you might get a feeling like that. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes. Yeah. And it's great that you use that analogy. I've run a triathlon, so not a full one, an Olympic distance triathlon. And I had, like you said, it doesn't start that morning.
Yeah.
It starts for me, it started a year ahead of time. And I had run that triathlon like a dozen times before the day of the triathlon. And that really is the essence of inspection readiness. You have such confidence because your systems are compliant. Your people, have the culture. That they're the type of, that you have the type of culture that people are going to do the right thing when nobody's looking. Mm-hmm. And, they're going to follow their procedures. They're going to speak up if they see that something's not right. And that confidence, you have the SMEs with the utmost knowledge and experience of the issues that they're presenting on, right? They're practiced. They have sat, maybe through a mock inspection with somebody like myself who, can question them and can quote unquote interrogate them and see how they act and give them that training, right? And all of that really is kind of pulling it all together at the end of the day where they are so confident.
That's like
able to.
Yeah, that's like preparing for it. And what I'm feeling here is that the real business case for inspection readiness is not to pass the inspection. The real business case is, can we be efficient, right? Because if we don't waste time, if we are confident, if we are answering questions well, if we are providing information, and we are demonstrating by our actions and how we present ourselves that we do have a culture of quality, I would think, I'm guessing, and would love to hear from you, that the investigator or the auditor will also, their job will be easier, not difficult, right? So the business case would be really efficiency and also effectiveness of the whole thing.
Right. Having a good, solid, inspection-ready quality system with, most importantly, the right people who know what to do and who are trained and who have the experience to deal with what needs to be dealt with, right? That confidence is going to basically be portrayed through any inspection, through any audit. And it not only gets you through an inspection or an audit, but it makes sure that, again, when we talk about speak up, right? If you have some of these experts that are doing these jobs and initially, a process may have been written at a point in time by somebody who maybe wasn't fully aware of what needed to be done, and we're continuing to make this process consistent, right? So people who speak up, who can raise their hand and say, hey, I have a better way to do this, right?
Yeah.
And so that's all part of that culture, right? To make people realize like, hey, your value, your opinion is going to matter because it's going to result in a quality system that's better, more consistent, more reproducible, where we can actually do what we need to do to prevent product mix-ups, to prevent recalls, to prevent complaints, right? But then if we do have complaints, we have a system.
And we handle it as a team.
Yeah, we handle it. We handle it as a team, right? And we prevent these things from, getting out of control.
Yeah.
And then again, during an inspection, right? The way that you're portraying yourself in that inspection with that confidence, because you've been there, done that kind of a confidence, really where you can let the investigator know, like, hey, we're experts here. We know everything that we should know. We do this every day. We are consistent, and there's nothing to see here. Let's move on, right? And that's kind of how you want to attack every single subsystem as it's being audited, as it's being inspected, and as you move on to each one, you don't leave any questions, in mind. You keep moving on.
So, I think, having said all this, I think it makes a lot of sense. But let's acknowledge that in real life, there is still a feeling of fear and dread when it comes to inspections and audits. How do we move forward in creating sort of a, culture and understanding, like, hey, we want to be in a place where we say, bring it on, we are ready. How do we transition from where we are today in an environment of culture and dread to an environment where we are confident. Do you have any kind of insight on that?
Well, there's no getting around, right? There's this concept of, when we're just us, at the table, there's no inspectors, there's no investigators, there's no notified body assessors, we're just here doing our day to day. There's less stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
We kind of just know that we could just do this. Nobody's watching. No, in reality, everybody's watching because documentation lives forever.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can have employees who are used to being observed and who are comfortable and actually even confident and given the opportunity to describe or to talk about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And, honestly, that only comes with, first off, we mentioned the mock inspection. That's just a blip, right? That's just a moment. That's just a week in time, right?
Yeah.
But you have to set up a routine program where people are being observed. And it doesn't have to be called an audit. It could be called some sort of an in-process check or something very basic.
Yeah.
Where, operators from, say, production observe QC inspectors, and then QC inspectors go and they observe people at incoming inspection who don't work with them, right? So you have everyone being able to observe everyone else, and they become really comfortable with people watching them. And this, again, could be a very informal, could be something that happens once a week, once a month, but it's a routine, it's consistency that's built in, and they're able to explain.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I love it.
And they're able to feel confident.
And again, our purpose here is not to say, hey, we're going to watch you until you screw up and say, hey, this is what you did wrong. But we're going to watch you together, because our purpose is to, I've sat through these training classes where you go through an example where the same thing is being seen by two different people in two different ways. And that's the essence of it. Like, one person cannot absorb all the information. It's kind of a buddy system. So I love this. I love this, aspect of a cultural aspect of inspection readiness. And I think what I want to do, when this is a great kind of segue for us to start inviting our audience to share their thoughts. And guys, this is a very open, casual forum. So don't feel like you have to ask a question. Make sure you are also ready to share your perspective, your views. What has worked for you? And where do you find some challenges as you think about inspections and audits? So the floor is open. Please indicate to me by raising your hand virtually. David, you are on. I will bring you on. So I will start bringing you guys on, and make sure you just, are ready to just share whatever you have in mind. So David, with that, please share what you have in mind today.
Thank you. Thank you, Naveen. Vincent, this is fascinating. I love listening to you talk. It seems like the recurring theme over and over, Naveen, is the challenges we have are pretty simple. They're about people talking, collaboration. They're about, like you said, two people essentially speaking the same language, right? We're looking at this thing. If you see a boat and I see an airplane, it seems like those are the issues we have. So my question is, one, do you kind of confirm that's a challenge? And second of all, do you know of, or can you speak to some formal methods to combine these things, which are conceptual and analog and, on one hand, and then very digital on the other hand? How do you have any thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Vin, if you have some thoughts to share.
Yeah, this is a great question. And David, I really do. Oh, first of all, thank you for what you said. I appreciate your kind words. I loved the concept, and I talked a little bit about it earlier, is people, right? And the way people interact with one another. And again, making people comfortable with being observed. And part of that is the interchange. It's not just somebody standing there with a clipboard watching the other person, like Naveen said, waiting for them to mess up. It's the person with the clipboard. First of all, there is no clipboard, right? Mm-hmm. The person who is just trying to understand, right? And they're there. And so I always try to tell people, come into a situation with the intention of learning something, right? Mm-hmm. Not the intention of telling somebody that they didn't already know, but you're coming into a situation where you didn't already know something, and have that open mind, almost like a cup that's open, and you're coming into that situation with an open cup, and you're hoping that by the time you leave that interchange, that cup is going to be full.
Nice.
And so when, especially in organizations, like you said, it's so easy for two people to hear the same thing and walk out of that room with a different idea in their mind or a different experience, right?
Yeah.
All of the way that we interpret things that we hear are all based on our past experiences. And so you have to really make sure that, when you're talking to people, that you leave, you don't leave without both fully understanding what, what is, what was the understanding, especially, if we tie it back into, inspection readiness, right? And having a gap gap analysis, which results in this huge action plan, right? And you're trying to establish the who does what by when, right? Because that's where the rubber hits the road. And if you're not clear about the who and the doing what by when, right? The what is so important, because you may say, well, update that procedure, right? Or create that procedure, or make that procedure less ambiguous.
Yeah.
Right? The person may leave the room and completely go off on a tangent that you didn't expect. So right. So you really have to make sure that you have a good ability to talk and do not avoid conflict. I've worked in organizations where there was almost a deliberate avoidance of conflict, and it was the worst culture ever. And then I worked in some organizations, and in one in particular, it was an IVD, where it was almost like a sport. If we can, wrestle around ideas mentally and verbally, but not in a hurtful way, but in a way to say, I don't understand what you're saying. Well, here's what I'm saying, and wrestling it, and don't be afraid of that conflict, because it's going to result in the results that you're looking for.
So hearing you say this, when I'm also sensing that there's a leadership component to it, right? As leaders in organization, we also have to set the tone and create an environment where people are, they're not afraid to speak up. They're not afraid to engage with the right intent. I know we're going to have a lot of conversation about this. So Rahul, you're waiting very patiently. I want to invite you to unmute your mic and share what you have in mind now. Go ahead, Rahul.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for this conversation. And I hear from both of you and David question also. My question is relevant to that. Why we should go for a readiness? My question is different, because every day, if we are working on a right way, everything we are doing as per our procedures, and we are doing everything on time and real time activities, then why we prepare additionally for any audit? If we are compiling with a requirement of FDA or any regulatory throughout the world.
That's excellent point. Yeah, you're saying like, what is the need to do something extra? So I think it'll be nice to clarify exactly what we mean by inspection readiness here.
Yeah, no, Rahul, that's a great question, because you're like, well, hey, I'm good, right? I don't have any problems. We have good procedures. We've done gap analyses. We don't have any gaps, and we should be fine, right? But there is other things that you have to really be focused on, and I think we touched a lot on the ability for your employees to be observed. They're not always used to being observed, and especially making sure that your employees know exactly what to say to people from the outside to convey that confidence that they know what they're doing, and that they don't share too much information. They share just exactly the right amount of information, and maintaining that routine presence of inspection readiness through regular in-process checks, like we talked about, observing employees, and that consistent monitoring of your QMS feeder systems, to make sure that if you've got complaints coming in,
I guess,
why are they coming in, that kind of thing.
So I guess I think we could summarize this like this. It's not an add-on, Rahul. I think in my mind, it's more like practicing. A daily practice, a weekly practice, monthly practice, with the intent to get better over time. So hold that thought. We can come back to it if there's more discussion, but I have several people waiting. And Louis, I'm really excited to have you on. Please unmute your mic and share what you have in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen. And Vincent, thank you for your comments and whatever you said about this subject. It's all very relevant. I have found that inspection readiness is in a way a misnomer. There's some great misunderstanding because, in my opinion, in and out of so many companies, there's a point where people are looking for, we're ready, okay? And that point is not necessarily shared by all the parties involved. Mm-hmm. And in reality, it's a concept that's very difficult to achieve. What you can achieve is some confidence in your abilities, mm-hmm. some confidence in your setup, some confidence in your ability to be challenged. But there's never a 100% concept here, okay? And in reality, it's not about a 100%, because I can tell you, Vincent I can walk into a plant and do an exhaustive inspection. Vincent can follow me and he can pick out 2 or 3 major things, okay? And vice versa. Mm-hmm. I mean, right. You know this because, we've done it 100 times. 100 times. The point is, were those things so obvious, were so significant, but they were blind mm-hmm. to the system. Mm-hmm. They did not see it. And part of that is because a lot of the new people that are indoctrinated into the quality management system of the company mm-hmm. might not be indoctrinated the right way or adequately, if you will. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's misconceptions, lack of knowledge that is passed on to the next generations of the new hires of the company.
Yeah.
And they don't know, but they don't know better. That's how they were trained. That's how they were trained when they first came in. Yeah. So they never could assess true risk.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that inspection readiness is not about like an endpoint. It's a journey, and we always get better. And
exactly,
right.
Exactly.
So, and it's all about our willingness and openness and confidence to be challenged and make that progress. So I really appreciate that, Luis. Thank you. And given your background at the FDA as well, this makes a lot of sense to us. All right, guys. I will take one more question from Roger. I know we are running out of time, but anybody who raises their hand, even at the last minute, I invite them. So Roger, go ahead. Please share what you have in mind.
More of a comment than a question.
Sure.
And something somebody said just really struck home to me about the leadership, especially quality leadership at the highest levels. Mm-hmm. I worked at companies where I thought we had good quality leadership. We all thought we did. And then I worked at companies that got into a little hot water, and I saw a change in senior quality leadership. And it was a night and day difference to me, and very, very eye-opening. Mm-hmm. It really reflected all the way down. And in my experience, I would say that in many cases, the lower level folks, they don't get enough training because the leadership doesn't give them, and training is the wrong word, mm-hmm. that right culture, because it wasn't coming down from the top.
Yeah, leaders.
So my hat is off to senior quality leadership. That's good.
You're so right, Roger. And they set the tone. They set the tone, and they create the right mindset about inspections. Guys, again, this has been just awesome, and time flies when we are talking about topics like this. And again, the intent here is not to kind of go so deep and come out with some, wonderful insights that you can go and practice. Our purpose here is to acknowledge that we have these big, interesting topics to talk about. So I just want to give Vin a couple of minutes to collect his thoughts so he can share maybe 2 or 3 key points we can take away with. But in the meantime, I'm going to just share a few housekeeping announcements with you. The first thing is, guys, this is always at 11 o'clock on Friday. So those of you who are new, you will see announcements for weekly conversations every week. But put this on your calendar. Show up at 11 o'clock Eastern if you're interested. And if you miss any of these conversations, know that I publish a recording with commentary on my Let's Talk Risk newsletter. So that's another thing I want to ask you. Go ahead and sign up for the newsletter. You will find the link in the comment section of this event page. And guys, if you love this conversation, give a shout out. And there is a link also in the event to share your thoughts and experiences and feedback on this. With that, Vin, I want to invite you to share just 2 or 3 key takeaway points with us.
Yeah, thank you so much again. For me, the takeaway, kind of goes to what we were talking about inspection readiness really being a comprehensive program. And there's really, someone can say there's a defined starting point, but in my opinion, there's really no defined ending point because it's a continuous improvement process. So making sure that we're aware of the fact that we may never get perfect, and that's not the point. Even as Christopher mentioned about finding our problems, regulators, they have no problem with you finding your own problems. It's really when you find those problems, do you address them comprehensively, timely, and do they not repeat? Right? Those are the 3 key elements of making sure that you have a good, healthy quality system, and the people all underpin that, right? So the culture underpins that culture of consistency of addressing your issues underpins that, right? There's commitment, right? Just like a commitment is a New Year's resolution to quit sugar, it wanes over time. Yeah. But unless you set a consistency, some sort of a consistency process, you're going to fail. So having the consistency, and realizing, and again, I agree with the comment about having a good comprehensive audit program, making sure that there's that comfortableness of all of your employees being observed and having that 2-way dialogue as to what they're doing. It really helps. And then the culture, speak up culture, making sure that problems are fixed as soon as they're found. And obviously leadership, giving them the tools to do that. And again, like you said, Naveen, we could talk three LTRs about just this.
And
right? So I love the opportunity.
And we will. And the point here is basically to continue our conversations. We'll have many more opportunities. So guys, thanks a lot again for joining. Vin, thank you for giving us your time and your insights. Everybody who raised their hand and shared their comments and insights, thank you to all of you. Guys, have a good weekend ahead. We will see you next week once again. And I wish you all the best. Take care. Thank you.